Позвольте представиться, меня зовут Алексей Павлов, я являюсь директором по развитию JSOC, Центра мониторинга и реагирования на киберугрозы компании Ростелеком Солар. И сегодня очень хочется рассказать про наши подходы к обеспечению покрытия мониторингом инфраструктуры заказчиков и, в принципе, дать несколько полезных советов. Именно для вас, если вы, например, самостоятельно хотите построить СОК или, в принципе, обеспечить хотя бы атомарную функцию мониторинга выявления инцидентов. Я вот на этом слайде не хочу долго останавливаться, просто хочу сказать, что с каждым годом количество новостей становится, вот именно громких взломов становится все больше и больше. И все чаще и чаще эти взломы влияют впрямую на бизнес. На самом деле это в первую очередь вам, потому что вам проще становится как безопасникам
Because this way, it should be easier for you as security people to kind of explain your budgets and increase your budgets.
Как направление деятельности в компании, которое в лице бизнеса зачастую выглядит как просто трата денег, на самом деле с каждым годом становится все более и более значимой.
So actually, this is a very important function and keeps growing in importance, and the percentage of budgets you're getting on the IT side is obviously growing. So the well-known cases, those scandalous, shall I say, notorious cases, I mean, they're useful for us to show why we matter. Actually, take DarkSide. DarkSide actually recognized that it was a kind of a mistake that got them in the colonial pipeline, and they did perform a pretty simple attack. Well, we at Solar use the following distribution. Now we have both cyber groups or cyber criminal groups into 5 buckets, depending on defenses and their TTPs. First level is automated scans. So these are the people who created bots, and the main objective is to break inside the perimeter. Or maybe, plant a bot there that will actually talk on a regular basis to CNC, and trust me, it happens not just to SMEs. The second level are hooligans or standalone hackers who don't really have a plan to persist or monetize their persistence in the infrastructure. The third group are those who don't really care about the industry. Whoever is hacked, they will try to monetize. The fourth level is APTs. And they know from day zero, why they're doing it and how they're going to monetize. And level 5 is pro-governmental APTs. The difference between levels or groups 4 and 5 are only different in the sense that level 5 will never stop. Even if you discover them and kick them out, they will return, because their time is unlimited, their budgets are unlimited, and very often you don't even know that they are there, because they are there for espionage, or maybe they are there to sabotage or whatever, and sometimes, they're just lying low, and they will not execute until they are instructed. So this is the key difference. They will return, and their budgets tend to be unlimited. Next, I want to discuss the tool set. I actually want to stress here levels 2 and 3. The most important thing about level 2 is to break into the perimeter. So they can use zero-day in phishing. They can actually exploit vulnerabilities of external services. When they get inside the infrastructure, they will behave in a pretty trivial manner. And this actually will make you think of a pretty simple, pretty cheap pen test. And pen testers, they often don't need to hide themselves. They're just there to show that, they can wreak havoc in your system. Well, they're not really planning to persist in your infrastructure for a long time. They're there to make money. This is level 3, right? Levels 4 and level 5, they're different. Their main paradigm is that, they will be looked for, they will be searched for. And they know that threat hunting and incident monitoring will all be mounted against them. That's why their approach is different. It's important for them to stay hidden. Now, a typical case of penetrating infrastructure, it could include, for example, hacking perimetral RDP, or, say, phishing, followed by, say, escalation of privileges, or they simply dump the passwords at the host level, then they escalate privileges, then they create an account on the domain, or they will be using somebody else's account. So, for example, they will encrypt the infrastructure, or they will put a miner on your data center, on your servers, or they will steal your money using this or that routine. Like you may remember what happened in 2015, 2016, when the guys actually, started the way that money was sent to the central bank, I guess, of the Russian Federation. And then, they actually abused this routine, and they used the mules to actually cash in. Now, their main objective is to penetrate the perimeter, and without getting rooted in the infrastructure, they just want to monetize real quick. So they will be using phishing and many scans. They will be using Nmap or CAN or Metasploit. They will be brute forcing. They create tools in domain controllers. They will be cleaning the logs. So they will be creating a lot of noise. So in order to protect yourself against them, a basic SOC should be enough. Covering a basic SOC covering basic infrastructure, such as, DHCP, domain controllers, and so on and so forth. You actually don't need too much. So maybe you don't have very highly skilled people in the first echelon of defense, but as long as they're able to see, a failure of a rule and distinguish it, say, from an attack, that's good enough. And then, your IT people will be implementing basic responses. So as long as you do it fast, you should be able to contain level 3 threats. And the types of scenarios you can actually discover are like this. They will include, for example, creation of privileged nodes on domains, or inclusion of those in privileged groups, or antiviral alerts. Take, for example, Kaspersky antivirus, which is good at, say, discovering malware as well as not a virus, such as, TierViewer and AMA admins, things that can actually make your system less secure without being malware. Usage of miners, usage of Tor, usage of other, network IOC, so to speak, that you get from FinCert or other certs or CSIRTs. That should be enough, really, to protect you against level 3. I'm showing an example here from a pen test that was successfully identified by a pretty basic SOC. So what you see here is scenarios that worked. So pen testers saw no reason to hide their activities. And I guess that this case is something like 2 weeks old. So there are lots of guides on how to create scenarios, how to create correlation rules. So I'm not going to dwell on it for long. Now, if we're talking about levels 4 and 5, please remember that they're dramatically different. Well, first, their reconnaissance stage is long, and it takes quite a lot of resources. They spend quite a lot of time trying to learn what you do, how you do it, what kind of services do you use. And they may be using phishing, but chances are this will be spear phishing. There were cases, for example, earlier this year, when they would actually break into home offices. For example, rather than hacking a particular employee, they would hack his relatives or a child. First, they would be able to persist in a home network. And for example, if he's a top manager, maybe he's connecting from home to through a non-encrypted channel to his work emails and stuff. So obviously, they are taking time to prepare. And their paradigm is that, they're being looked for, which means that they will never launch mass scans. They're not going to use dumb brute force. The way they work is low and slow, which obviously means they know exactly what they're going to do. They have a very clear plan for monetization. So there may be, say, correspondence accounts there or stuff like this. And it will depend, depending on the industry. Now, if we are talking, say, industry or a power sector, obviously there should be interests coming from, say, other rival states, and APT is linked to them. Now, these guys will often be using legit tools, characteristic of your organization. Say, if your admins are using VNC in order to remotely administrate machines, well, APT will also be using them. They will not wreak havoc on a domain controller. They will be using existing accounts. They will be using, for example, accounts of the current admins, and they will be using 0 days and, both vulnerabilities and malware. And rather than wiping the audit logs, they will redirect the audit stream, so to speak, to a different file and then bring it back. And this way, you won't see that your log has been wiped, nor will you notice any unorthodox activity on a host.
Соответственно, основной тезис, который хочется донести, если мы имеем дело с 4-5 уровнем.
So if we're dealing with levels 4 or 5, please remember, you won't catch them until they break the perimeter, even if you believe you've caught them. Rest assured, they will break through the perimeter next week, which means you'll need to catch them on the infrastructure. It is more effective because we have the classic pyramid of pain, which actually shows that, the more tools you disclose or discover being used by a particular threat actor, well, the higher the chances that, they will find it difficult to persist. And maybe if it's level 4, they won't come back. If it's level 5, they are unlimited in terms of their resources, but the only thing you benefit in is time. A basic SOC will not help you there. Now, if you try connecting all host infrastructure to CM, maybe it will work, but nobody can guarantee that at a particular second, at a particular time, all the hosts have properly audited and they are sending the logs. One of these two problems will always pop up. In large infrastructures, distributed infrastructures, when you have thousands, like dozens of thousands of hosts, making sure that, critical groups or critical accounts, are properly taken care of, or, all the profiling is properly done, is nearly impossible because the organization is so large. You can try using CM to address this issue, but this doesn't guarantee results. So, say, Sysmon from EDR, EDR is easier to manage, easier to deploy, and it does contain letter D in it, which means that you can collect data, you can also terminate processes. Which means that there are additional components needed, such as IRB, RSINT, and EAs. So these are not your classical scenarios to be dealt with by your first line. You need your hunt team or your forensic team. So they will be using MITRE matrices to investigate them. So this includes profiling and mapping and kill chain, and obviously they need systems. For example, if you have a series of incidents related to a particular set of credentials, a particular host and initiator, obviously it's important for you to see, even if you're like a first-line support person, that there were incidents related to the same host, like yesterday, 20 days ago.
Кейс-менеджмент, который есть в CM-системах, ни в одной не позволит вам это прям хорошо сделать. Тут нужны уже там SOAR, IRP-системы.
So you will need a SOAR or an IRP system.
Еще важный момент, что если мы говорим про
Another important observation here is that if we're talking about APTs,
нормальный отсмотр каких-то ручных
we actually need
событий и алертов.
to sort of observe, alerts. Say, if you have, say, 30,000 hosts, the number of viral infections detected by an antivirus system will be colossal. However, looking at the kind of malware discovered, which directories, and being a professional at that can be very useful, because you will be able to see that, well, this is basic phishing, or maybe, this is regular stuff found in the wild. But sometimes, your NAV system can actually discover, something coming from a professional exploit pack. So why do we need NTA, EDR, and IRP? NTA enables you to identify in the net flow something that you weren't able to see in the host. Well, cover the whole infrastructure with a basic AV. Boris Simis from the same stage 2 years ago asked the room if anybody could guarantee that all the hosts in their infrastructure were covered with AV. There were only 2 hands raised, and the room was full. Indeed, it is very difficult. On the net, threat actors always leave traces. So you should be able to see their, PowerShell, CMD, basexec, other commands. And their attempts at exploiting vulnerabilities, that's why analysis of network traffic is therefore so important. In an ideal world, all hosts need to be covered with EDR, because this way you'll see everything, because there are signs, there are traces, but globally speaking, it will show so much more than the regular Windows audit, and will also enable you to quickly perform some commands on the host and get the dump of the operating memory and quickly collect this data. So please know that NTA and EDR is not to be run by the first-line people. They are to be managed by, a specialized team. IRP enables you to develop a whole response chain, because, well, monitoring and response, they go hand in hand, right? And IRP enables you to prioritize incidents by criticality. Now, what we see here is screenshots from an EDR. So we can see here that a pen tester or a threat actor is sitting on a host, but we also see what they're using. Like they're using scans, so they're trying to scan the domain for the list of domain admins. Then they're trying to get a registry dump. So this way, you actually get much more visibility. I've already mentioned that APTs, they're slow. They're like turtles. So if you are preparing for an APT, you should actually allocate, distribute functions. Some people should be responsible for monitoring basic incidents and ensuring basic hygiene, things that regular SOCs are very good at. But there are separate things to be done by, say, threat hunters. And, say, a security analyst who knows your infrastructure very well is a good investment. Next, you can do automation of threat hunting rules. At least a part of it can be automated. However, some companies still don't have a threat hunting process in place. And also, you need to develop a process for responding. And, having cyber range is also a good idea. Also, you should be better off if you develop a response plan.
И вот всем пользователям...
A contingency plan, shall I say, for example, you will want all the users to change their passwords. And at the same time, remote work will be prohibited. This should be it from my part of the presentation. And what I should also mention is that this year we're offering our services in a different paradigm. And besides the basic monitoring, we're also offering this, services as components of basic larger modules. Also, please note that this concept enabled us to feel much better when we deal with our clients. So when our clients, for example, ask external red teams, in like 99% of cases, maybe 100% of cases, we see those red teamers. And it is this concept in particular that got us there. This is it. I'm ready to take your questions.
Ну что, коллеги, спасибо. Если что, можно будет в кулуарах задать.
Okay, if you have questions, you can certainly ask them off stage as well.